All right, the next video will discuss the Multicultural Literacy Center, and I am on page 16 of your syllabus. So this is a lot of fun. It is rather daunting at first, but this won't be due until the end of the semester. I think it's going to be due like week 13 or week 14 of our semester, so we're looking at about April. So you're going to create a literacy center, and then you're going to create a brief video where you show us your literacy center. So your literacy center, typically students use a trifold presentation board to display their items. If there's another way you want to organize the physical aspect of your learning center, you're absolutely free to do that, and we can talk a little bit more about that once we start to get into what a literacy center is. So the video, you're going to explain the literacy center setup, the materials that you're using, you're going to describe the activities, and then your assessments. So you're going to upload those videos to a discussion board, so that way we can watch each other's videos and then provide some comments or feedback. So you're going, the way that this works is that you're going to select a piece of literature, so a book. The book should be multicultural, so that's the requirement, that this book has to be something from the multicultural genre. And again, we will talk about that and what makes a good literacy book for that. So you're going to pick one book, and then you're going to develop 3 activities from your book. Now this has a little bit more of free reign to it. In other words, they don't all have to be language and literacy specific lessons. One of those 3 does. So one has to be on phonics or comprehension or vocabulary or character development or story plot. One of them has to be from that green section of your early learning standards. It has to be language and literacy. The other 2 lesson plans can be in different areas. So maybe you would like to do a social studies lesson plan. Maybe you would like to do a math lesson plan or a science lesson plan. That's okay. You can do all 3, language and literacy. That doesn't matter. But I'm giving you a little bit more creativity in this to really develop a robust center. It's almost like a thematic center. The trick is, so you'll see here, develop 3 activities that support the book. You will have a total of 9 activities. What? 3, 9? What are we talking about? What I mean is that it's a multicultural literacy center, but we are going to be talking about differentiating instruction. So when we differentiate instruction, it means that we know when I'm sitting, let's say I'm teaching first grade, and I'm sitting with my first graders, and I decide I'm going to read, this book for the first graders. I know not every child in that first grade classroom is reading at the first grade level. That makes sense, right? Some kids might be doing, they might be a little bit ahead. They might be approaching second grade. Some of the children might be right on target and they're hitting their first grade milestones. We know there's going to be some children in our first grade classroom who are not at level, right? So what do? So if we read this book and we just have one way to engage with it, one lesson, that means we're not challenging the students who are reading above level. And we're not scaffolding, we're not helping those children who are not at level yet. So what teachers learn to do, what's really important to learn to do, is that we need to be able to stretch our thinking so that if I'm going to read this book called, Everybody Eats Rice, for example, what can my readers who are a little bit advanced, what kind of activity can they do to engage with this book? What about my on-level readers? What can I have them do to learn and engage with this book? What about my kids who are in first grade but are still like at a preschool level, maybe a kindergarten level? How are they going to engage with this book? So you're going to plan your language and literacy lesson, for example, and then you're going to plan it for on-level. Then you're going to modify it for above level, and you're going to modify it for below level. So that's how you get those 3 lesson plans. So you're having really one plan but you're think of it like a ball of Play-Doh, but you're stretching it one way, you're giving some extra supports, and you're stretching it backwards to help the children who need that extra help. And you're going to do that a total of 3 times. So 3 times 3 is 9. So that's how you get your 9 activities. And we will absolutely talk about how this looks and how this happens. That's a big portion of this section. So you can read through the project requirements here. So because you're not actually, I used to have this was the final exam when I used to teach this in person, and in May everybody would bring their full-blown everything, kit and caboodle everything to our classroom, and they would set everything up, and then our students, the 203 students, would physically do the activities that were in the lesson plan. So everybody had to bring all the materials and all the required copies and everything. And it was really enjoyable to see all your hard work, actually pay off and actually see students working on it. Since we're doing this at home, I do want you to make the literacy center, because that's important. It's important to kind of, rather than just talking about it, to see actually what goes into it. But you don't necessarily need to have all of the resources, available. You can simply list that you might need hole punchers or crayons or scissors. You don't need to actually physically go out and get them. But again, we'll talk more about that as we get closer. So I do have the rubric here. So this is how I will grade you on the lesson plans. You also will have, let me see, where is it? A newsletter. So you will prepare a newsletter that could go home to families describing your literacy center. And then you should have 3 examples of what families can do at home that would support the activities that you're doing in class. And then you'll write a brief rationale. So you'll be able to, it's basically what you'll be saying to us in your video. So it's a good way to be prepared. So you're going to describe the purpose of your center, what are your goals, what are your standards that you've used, what book have you used, why do you think it's appropriate for the grade, and then why do you think your lesson plans support the book. So it's just kind of describing everything, providing your rationale for what you have done. And then that's it. It's worth 40 points.